was filled with drawings of spaceships and planets, and shelves of books about astronauts and galaxies. Every night, she whispered goodnight to the moon and named the bright stars. One night, as Luna was gazing at the stars, she noticed a shooting star streaking across the sky. She made a wish. The next morning, she woke up and rushed to her window, but there was nothing there. Disappointed, she went back to bed. As the weeks went by, the shooting star became less and less of a mystery. And although she never stopped hoping for a visitor from another world, she began to accept that it probably wasn't going to happen. That is, until one day when a stranger showed up on her doorstep. Deep in the countryside, hidden down a dirt road lined with trees, sat an old farmhouse. It was the kind of house that looked like it belonged in a fairy tale, with its climbing ivy and overgrown garden. The windows were dusty, suggesting that no one had lived here for many years. But that all changed when a young woman named Alara decided to move in. Alara had always been drawn to the house. When she was little, she would walk past it on her way to school and imagine what it would be like to live inside. The house had a certain charm to it, even though it was in need of repair. The paint was peeling from the walls, the roof had seen better days, and there were cobwebs everywhere. But Alara didn't care. She saw past all that and imagined the possibilities. So when she heard that the house was for sale, she didn't hesitate to make an offer. The owner, an elderly man who had inherited the house from his parents, accepted without even trying to negotiate. He was just glad that someone was willing to take the house off his hands. For him, it had become too much of a burden to maintain. Alara moved in and started making changes. First, she cleaned out the house, removing all the clutter and debris that had accumulated over the years. Then she started painting the walls and fixing up the roof. It was hard work, but Alara didn't mind. She was finally making her dream of living in the house a reality. And as the days passed, the house started to look like a home. The walls were painted a cheerful yellow, the roof was fixed, and there were curtains in the windows. Alara was so happy with how it was turning out that she decided to throw a party to celebrate. She invited all her friends and neighbors, and they all came to help her finish up the work. It was a fun day, and as the evening drew on, everyone started to relax and enjoy themselves. They played games, ate food, and drank plenty of wine. Then suddenly, the power went out and the house was plunged into darkness. Everyone panicked, unsure of what to do. But Alara stayed calm. She knew that the house's electricity was unreliable at the best of times, and she suspected that a storm had knocked out the power. So she grabbed a flashlight and went to check on the others. She found her friends and neighbors huddled together in the living room, their faces pale in the dim glow of the fireplace. "Don't worry," she said, trying to sound reassuring. "It's probably only temporary." She led them back to the dining room where they had been eating dinner and helped them serve up what was left of the food. The guests were grateful for the distraction, and after they finished eating, they started telling stories and jokes. The mood was somber, but Alara was determined to keep spirits high. She sang songs and told jokes, and made sure that everyone had a drink. Hours passed, and still there was no sign of the power coming back on. Eventually, Alara's guests started to leave. One by one, They said their goodbyes and headed out into the darkness. Elara stood at the door waving until they were gone. Then she closed it and leaned against it, exhausted. She had done her best to keep everyone calm and entertained. But now that they were gone, she felt a wave of panic wash over her. What if the power didn't come back on? What if she had to spend the night in the dark? She tried to shake off the feeling, but it was no use. She was scared. Just then, she heard a knock at the door. She jumped and quickly wiped away her tears. Who could it be at this hour? She approached the door cautiously and peered through the peephole. She couldn't see anyone outside, but she could hear their footsteps. She opened the door a crack and asked, "Who's there?" A deep voice replied, "Don't be afraid. We're here to help." Then she saw them. 3 figures stood on her doorstep, their faces illuminated by the light from their flashlights. They were tall and thin, with long necks and large heads. Their eyes were wide and curious, and their mouths were full of sharp teeth. Elara stared back at them in shock, unable to speak. The figures took a step closer. "Can we come in?" one of them asked. Elara hesitated for a moment, torn between fear and curiosity. But ultimately, she decided to trust them. She stepped aside and let them enter. The figures shuffled inside, their eyes darting around the room, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings. "Thank you for your hospitality," one of them said. "My name is Lysander. These are my companions, Zarthus and Xyler. We come in peace." Elara nodded, still a bit nervous, but trying to appear polite. "I'm Elara," she replied. "And what can I do for you?" Lysander gestured with his long neck toward the window. "We saw your house was without power and we wanted to help," he said. "We have some generators on our ship. We can hook them up and bring light back to your home." Elara felt a wave of relief wash over her. "Oh, that would be wonderful," she said. "Thank you so much." Lysander and his companions wasted no time in getting to work. They disappeared outside for a moment before returning with strange devices that whirred and clicked. Soon, the house was filled with light again and the atmosphere had shifted from tense to welcoming. Over the next few hours, Elara learned more about her visitors. They were from a distant planet called Zargan, which was located in a star system far beyond Earth's reach. They had been traveling the universe for centuries, seeking knowledge and helping those in need. When they had seen Elara's house without power, they had felt compelled to stop and assist. Elara, in turn, shared stories of Earth and her own experiences living in the old farmhouse. The conversation was easy and pleasant, and for the first time since the power had gone out, Elara felt a sense of calm wash over her. As the night wore on, the friends traded stories and laughter, oblivious to the fact that the sun was beginning to rise. When the first rays of light peeked through the curtains, Elara's visitors announced that it was time for them to go. "We have traveled far and need to rest," Lysander explained. "But it has been an honor to meet you, Elara, and to help you." Elara felt a pang of sadness at their departure, but she understood that they had a journey to continue. She accompanied them to the door and waved goodbye as they stepped out into the morning light. In the days that followed, Alara often thought back to her encounter with Lysander and his companions. She couldn't help but wonder if their paths would cross again. And as she stood at her window gazing out at the stars, she dreamed of adventures beyond her wildest imagination. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to receive our beautiful stories.